This episode is brought to you by MPB. Get cash for the kit you're not using or trade it in for the gear you want at mpb.com. Hey folks, in this episode, I get to sit down with Mr. Jefferson Graham. This is part 2 of our discussion about iPhone 13. This is TWiP. Hey, welcome back to another episode of This Week in Photo. I'm your host, Frederick Van Johnson. I got my buddy Jefferson Graham on the line. The last time he and I spoke, we recorded a little bit about our excitement about the iPhone 13 Pro Max, which had just been released, I think that day or the day before, with all these cool features in there, like macro mode and cinematic mode and bigger lenses, bigger sensors and all that. Well, Jefferson didn't have one in his hand at that time. I still don't have mine. But now he does, and he's had a chance to take it out in the field, take it out on a few events, put it through its paces. So now that the reality distortion field of Apple has worn off a little bit, let's find out what the real deal is with the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Jefferson Graham, welcome to the show, man. How's it going?
Well, thanks for having me again. It's great to see you several weeks later, 3 weeks or something like that, right?
Yep. 3 weeks. You look like you're getting younger, man. It's good. Look at that. So what's happening here with this iPhone? When we first talked about it, you were bullish. You loved it. Yeah,
and I do love it. And so the bottom line question, do I need to upgrade? Well, yeah, if you make video. Yeah, if you do a lot of macro photography. Sort of leave it at that.
That's it.
Those two things are the selling points. Is it a way better camera for stills? No. Is it better? Yes. The extra telephoto, you get a 77 millimeter equivalent on the Pro model versus I think it was a 62, 65. That's really not that much of a difference, but it still is pretty great to have. You're basically getting a DSLR, the walk around lens, 24 to 70, except in this case, it's 12 to 77 millimeter. That's a great versatile thing to have in your pocket.
Now, and I'm excited. So part of these questions that I'm asking you are coming from the dude that's waiting on Apple to get off their butt and ship me my phone so I can play with it, So, and I think I'm in that target that you mentioned. I have an iPhone 12 Pro Max and I love it. That's this guy right here. And quote, upgrading to the 13 Pro Max. And this one was, it was a tough decision, or not tough, but it wasn't a no-brainer decision. I was like, well, do I really need this? Is it really going to be that good? And then a friend of mine, Troy Miller, we were at this event and he had just gotten his that day. And he was showing me some of the macro photos that he did just around the area where we were hanging out at. And I was sold. I ordered mine that evening. So it sounds like I'm in the target market. I want the photography chops of it. I want the video chops of it, but I also want to be able to experiment with seeing, can I use the iPhone 13 Pro Max as a pro camera? Like, can I use it and do work that I'm proud to share and not have to apologize for the work being shot on the phone? Do you think are we there yet with the 13?
Paying clients who are going to pay you some serious coin, I don't think they'd appreciate you showing up with an iPhone. That's just the reality. Could you pull it off and could you get great shots? Yes, you could, as long as you were outside during the day. Yeah. Okay. I've now taken it to 2 weddings and I've had some fun with it. I could not shoot the wedding cake on Saturday. I could not get it in focus in cinematic mode. Cinematic mode is video portrait mode where with computational photography, they blur the background, looking really as nice as some of our 1.8 and 2.0 lenses, but I couldn't get it in focus in low light. And now I did 2 weddings. I did one last weekend and one the weekend before, just fooling around. I thought maybe I could shoot the tables and do the details. But when I switched to my Sony and my 24-7 millimeter lens, beautiful glass, $2,500 lens, it was sharper, it was better, it looked really cool. That said, Frederick, I did an entire episode of my Photo Walk series in Savannah, Georgia on this thing. I shot every frame of it on this thing, mostly in daylight. My shots in town with the little American flags behind me and the old buildings and the cobblestone bricks, out of focus, me in focus, looked absolutely awesome.
Yeah. So that's where we are, right? So it's not like we always say on the show, it's not an or, it could be an and. So for certain situations, that full frame mirrorless camera is going to be the way to go. And for other situations, the iPhone is going to be perfectly adequate or maybe even superior in some ways to using a big camera, depending on the situation, right? So,
there's some situations in low light. Now, in video mode, that's different from cinematic mode. Cinematic mode couldn't do the wedding cake, but video mode could. Video mode puts everything in focus from one end to the other, and sometimes you're struggling in low light at a wedding reception at 9 o'clock at night, and your camera's not doing it, but you can pull this thing out and actually get a pretty nice shot, particularly on your 24 millimeter. Not wide enough, but then you go to your 12 millimeter on your iPhone, looks pretty good. And of course, you could also do panoramas really easily on there. Sometimes when I'm in an event, I will just take this thing out because I don't have a 12 millimeter lens in my bag. I've got the 24, I have a 20 also, but it's just easier to just yank this thing out and get a few shots.
Yeah. So where are we? Like you said, I mean, it makes perfect sense that, if you show up at a corporate job with just an iPhone, they're going to be like, who's this guy, right? Yeah, so I get that. But then there's the rest of the world that's not doing corporate work, that's doing work where they're solo and they're shooting something and then processing and then presenting the final results to the world. So, those people don't need to be playing any sort of equipment theater for acceptance. They can just shoot and then share. But I'm wondering, looking at where Apple is, and I know you're plugged into what Apple's doing and a lot of these tech companies, but what Apple is doing with adding Dolby Vision and ProRAW and ProRes and those sorts of professional level technologies and codecs to a phone that many still consider to be an amateur or beginner's device for content creation. Where's Apple going with this? We're in 2021 as we record this. What's the iteration of iPhone going to look like on version 15, do you think?
Okay, well, first I have to do consumer alert because we talked about Dolby Vision last time. I told you it was a royal pain in the behind. The footage is very, very, very hard to deal with. And I'll get to ProRes in a second. Dolby Vision, when you stick it in your timeline, it looks totally 100% overexposed. And you're like, oh my God, what happened? Why does it look so terrible? You have to go into the effects browser in Final Cut, and you have to choose, it's called HDR Tools, and then you stick it on top of the clip, and you have a raw clip that you're now processing, and you're adjusting the exposure. This is going to be tough for a lot of people. There's also you're not going to believe this, but there's a button you have to press to switch from HLG 709 SDR to HDR 709, and then your clip will come to life. This is going to drive people crazy.
Okay, so I want to talk about that a little bit. But what about ProRAW, right?
ProRes.
ProRes. Yes.
ProRes. Okay, well, there's ProRAW and there's Pro Video.
Right. So there's still in video, basically.
ProRes for video, ProRAW for stills.
Yeah.
ProRAW is 25 megabytes versus 3 megabytes of photo. That's going to eat up your storage fast. I didn't find it as advantageous as when I shoot RAW on my Sony and I process it in Lightroom. I didn't really like the results. Other photographers have raved about it. I'm not one of them. So I'm just sticking with JPEG on the app on the iPhone. ProRes is higher resolution video for you to edit in Final Cut. And if you have 128 gigabyte storage on your iPhone, you can't use it because ProRes is so big. It only is operable if you get 256 and up. And of course, the iPhone 13 Pro starts at $1199 with 128 gigabytes of storage. So you're going to have to spend probably upwards of $1,300 to $1,500 in order to use it. It hasn't come out yet, so I can't give you the skinny on whether it looks better or not.
Yeah. Would you be? So again, who's it for though? I mean, is it? It sounds like a niche audience for people that purchased a phone that's beefy enough to handle those file sizes and all that, in terms of capacity. So is it for the experimental pro, like the J.J. Abrams who wants to get this cool shot over here that may not be used in anything, or is it for the working everyday Joe, like a wedding photographer that's going to capture the first dance or something like that? And would they want to use it? Like, who is it for?
So I'm at a wedding on this weekend, and I say to the guy I'm working with, 4K or 1080p? And he goes, why would you shoot a wedding in 4K? Who needs it? 1080p, man. So I don't think the wedding photographers are going to be doing ProRes. I think it's bragging rights for Apple to show their superiority and what they can do, and that they are state of the art when it comes to this thing. But I don't think consumers will be using it.
Yeah. Yeah. So overall, as a, I don't know if you purchased that phone or if you got it as a demo, but
it's review. But I would buy it in a second. Yeah.
Oh, you would buy it. Okay. So as someone who has that phone in hand, what's the final word on it? Recommendation? Is it just like last year with the 11 to the 12 jump? If you already have an 11, it's an incremental jump to the 12 unless you want the camera features. Are we seeing that again from 12 to 13?
What you do.
Yeah.
Depends on what you do. I make videos. I do it all the time. I want cinematic mode. I'm going to New Mexico in 2 weeks. I'm going to be shooting a lot. I love the idea of shooting as much as I can on this. I'll also be shooting on my cameras, but when I was running around Savannah, and I'm jumping into stores, and I've got a little, it's on a little stand. Nobody's kicking me out. When I walk in the door with the iPhone rolling, nobody says, hey, what are you doing? Stop. But when I walk in with a big black camera, they stop me immediately. So I have a lot of advantages of shooting on this, and I get better video on this than I did on the 12 Pro. 12 Pro, fantastic. It's wonderful. My rationale here is that if you bought a 12 Pro, you can sell it back to Apple for $400 to $500, and so now you're looking at an expenditure of about $600 for something that you're going to use for 10 hours a day, every day of your life for the next year. And I think it comes out to about $2.50 a day. And if you're a working professional, if you make your living doing this, if photography is your love, then it is an easy purchase.
Yeah. I just this is a whole separate interview, but I want to foreshadow that interview about the lifestyle shift of mobile photography and how things are moving in that direction. And not so much from these tools are amazing. We have supercomputers in our pockets that can shoot, edit, and share, and do our taxes and whatever else we want to do. We can do it on this little device. But from a photography standpoint, I'm curious where someone in your position sits on. Are we kind of firmly in the photography as an intrinsic addition to our lives? So it's lifestyle now. It's no longer, well, I got a phone that, it can kind of take photos, but they're not real or whatever. To the things that I do daily, it's second nature to use my phone, whether it's to take a picture of a parking spot, to remember it, or a picture of my food, or my kid doing something crazy, or whatever. I'm always generating content, it seems like, on a daily basis. It feels like things are moving not so much into the world of what's the latest and greatest ProRes, ProRAW, Dolby Vision, etc., but more into using your phone for image and content creation is a foregone conclusion for everyone. It's just how cool are you when you do it, and what can you create with it, since everyone has superpowers now? Where do you think this is going, Jeff?
I think most of the digital images you're seeing now are shot on a phone. Everything you see online is on a phone. We could still do beautiful stuff with cameras. I can't wait to shoot the big skies of New Mexico with my camera. I can't wait to put filters on my lenses. I can't wait to do lots of stuff because, as great as the pictures are from here, there are multiple exposures selected by Apple doing the work behind the scenes that I really can't get that involved in. Of course, I can throw them into Lightroom afterwards and develop them my way. But they've changed our lives. We are using them for we're taking so many more pictures, whether again, that's a picture of our driver's license, whether that's a picture of our food, whether that's taking pictures of contracts, but just all day long, we are using this. And, the camera is the camera that's in your hand, right? It's a cliche now, the best camera is the camera in your pocket, but it's on you. You're using it. It's there. It has lenses. I'm looking at them. There's 3 of them right there. Just like my camera, which has a big lens, and it's a bigger, beautiful lens. But that's what we're doing. And I think it's okay, and we'll be doing a lot more of it in the next few years. I don't think that what Apple is doing to sell this thing this year is mass market with cinematic mode. But on the other side of the coin, they're sold out.
Yeah.
But you can't get the iPhone. If you wanted to get it now, it's going to take you at least 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So, they know more than you or I about what they're doing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
they only
interesting.
Sell 200 million a year. 200 million of these.
Yeah.
things.
It's a multi-trillion-dollar company. Yeah. It's interesting, the shift, because it's, I look at, you and I have both been in photography forever, right? So, and you remember the excitement of getting that new Nikon or Canon or Sony or whatever back in the day when we were shooting film or whatever. It's like it was a ritual to get this new piece of kit that had buttons in the different places, and it did, back then it was, remember, frames per second. Or was the metric that everyone used on these cameras to, this one shoots 2.5 frames per second now, But I look at this, fast forward to these cameras, these camera phones, and the ecosystem of apps around them, and it kind of decouples the hardware from the OS in a lot of ways, because now I get excited. Like, here's an example. I'm currently excited about long exposure photography. So, and you can do it natively within the phone with,
Not well.
But there's some really cool apps that let you do some ridiculously professional looking long exposure photography that go well beyond what the inbuilt stuff can do. Professional level apps. And I'm looking at these, and like, I get that same kind of tingle in the pit of my stomach looking at this, like, it's almost like a brand new camera that I just purchased, because all the controls are there, but they're in different places and I have new features and all that. It's kind of the analog to back in the day when we got a new camera, but I can get a new one every day if I want to. So I don't know. Does that get you excited?
As long as you're willing to subscribe. I remember when all the apps were free. Now it's $7.99 for a week.
Yep. Yep, or $50 a year or whatever. And if I hear it's less than the price of coffee one more time, I'm going to scream. Right?
I know. At least let me try it out first and see if I like it.
Yep. So last question, you mentioned but when we were kind of trading emails yesterday about the low light performance, you mentioned it again during this episode, cinematic mode specifically, in the low light performance there. The new iPhone, and I think the 12 as well, have a low light mode on them. I know it's for still photos, but where do you fall in on your opinion of the low light capabilities on the 13 when it comes to still photography? Does that night mode stand up to the marketing hyperbole?
No, it's no difference. You can get night mode occasionally to look good. It's automatic. You can't ask for it to come in. It just sort of comes in when it wants to. And, I was in Hilton Head, South Carolina. There was a little jazz combo playing, and I was trying to shoot them in a really low light restaurant. And all the pictures look terrible. It just is, they say it's better in low light now. It's not. Let me clarify something on cinematic mode that most people don't realize. So switching gears for some. Cinematic mode, portrait mode for video, blurs the background. Did you know you could only shoot it in 1080p? You can't shoot it in 4K.
Yeah, I did know that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you know that the 3 lenses on the iPhone? No, you could only use one of them in cinematic mode.
Oh, interesting. I did not know. It makes sense because they're doing whatever. Because the cinematic mode on the iPhone is not real bokeh, right? It is like portrait mode where it's doing depth. It's using the LiDAR and finding out where depth is and where the subject is and blurring everything else. But it's doing that real time, and you can do it in post, right? If I understand correctly.
Okay, so that's the coolest thing. I also have to mention when you import the footage, okay? So you import the footage, you've shot it at what you think is f2, and it comes into your computer, and it looks like f16. All the blurring that you had is not there. You say, well, what happened? And they said, oh, you have to, when I use AirDrop to import everything into the computer. Sure. Yep. So when you use AirDrop, there's a, let me find it. There's an options button at the top of the screen, and you're supposed to click on it and then click the button underneath that says all photos data. And if you do that, you'll get the result. Now, my other workaround is that, yes, you shoot the images, and you can then go in and change the f-stop. So natively, it says 2.8. You can up it to f2. You can take it down to f16, all computational photography, but that's what you can do. And then once you do that, you save the file and you AirDrop it. And that way you'll get the blur. Did you get all that?
A great tip. I did. Yeah. Do you know what I got out of that? If it doesn't work, go rewatch this video and figure out what Jeff said. So final words on this, Jeff. What do you, I don't know. I know we're in technology, right? So it's hard to say final words because we're kind of on a conveyor belt. But last words about the 13 Pro Max. That's the model you have.
Yeah.
But, good, bad, ugly, make the jump. I know you said if you're a photographer or you do macro, what do you think?
If you're a photographer and you do macro, and yeah, of course. If you do video, of course. If you take stills and your stills are fine on the 12 Pro, they'll be fine on this too. You don't need it, but if you have the 11, yes. If you have the 10, of course. If you have the 8, there's no question. You just get a better phone and a better camera. I don't know about a better phone, but you get a way better device, a way better machine. And if you don't feel like buying it, don't buy it. But it is the best phone, the best device that Apple's ever come out with. There's no question about that.
It's a state of the art. I'm looking forward to getting my hands on that thing. And I think about when we talk about pushing the limits on technology and the best of the best and ProRes, ProRAW, Dolby, yada, 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 all these cool things that we can do, cinematic mode, etc. I think, yeah, that's all great and fantastic, and people can do some amazing stuff with that. But then I rewind and I think about the millions of dollars that were made on crappy video cameras. Like, remember Blair Witch Project? Just it wasn't leaning into the quality, let's say. It was leaning out of the quality on purpose as a cinematic device. So last question, I guess, for me to you is, are we there? Do you feel like we're at a point where, you know what, the iPhone 11 was great for the stuff that you're going to be doing, buddy. You really don't need the power of the 13 because there's so much airspace above you. You're never going to bump your head on the ceiling, even with something like the 11 or the 12 or even previous. What advice would you give to those filmmakers that are like, I need the 13 in order to see my vision come to life? What do you say?
Of course, you don't need it, but it's nice to have.
Yeah,
you could do better work. I did an entire half-hour episode on the iPhone and didn't look back. The only negative for me was I wish I had audio levels when I plugged in my mics. I don't have audio levels. I don't have headphones. And I've got to work around it. I thought the audio level was a little low, and I had to tweak it in Final Cut afterwards. So I would like to have that. Low light, super low light wasn't great. Decent low light was fine. And sky's the limit.
Yeah.
It's there, And the nice thing is there's an ecosystem out there of tools. There's so many tools and there's so many apps, and if you want to do it, you could do it.
You can do it with a phone, yeah. Or at least, yeah. We'll leave it right there. All right, so we're gonna chat again. There's so much to chat about. Thank you for coming on.
What I want to do next time. Okay, you always ask all the questions. So on the next episode, I'm going to interview you about your life and your empire and your photography and all of it. What do you say? Because I know the listeners would love to hear
Bring it on, man. I'm there. I'm
Okay.
there. Yes,
Okay.
of course. Yeah. To be interviewed by the great Jefferson Graham. Come on. Yeah, bring it on. Yeah. I'm
Okay.
I'm 100% in. You say the word, I will be on the mic. We'll do it.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, but we both have our mics on our desk, so it's not too hard. Right?
No, yeah, it's very easy.
Okay.
Yeah.
May I do my plugs?
Yeah, do your plugs.
Okay.
Yeah, we're at the end.
So the second season of Photo Walks is up and running on YouTube at youtube.com/photowalkstv. I'd love you to subscribe to my newsletter. Last time a bunch of you did, and that was fantastic. jeffersongraham.substack.com. And I have a website, which is photowalkstv.com and jeffersongraham.net. How's that?
Love it. Yeah, or just Google Jefferson Graham, and I think you own the first 30 pages of search results or something. So,
Hopefully.
yeah, no, that's great. Well, cool, man.
As do you, if we do a search for you, right?
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot there. You are always welcome on This Week in Photo. So let me know when you want to come on again. We'll do that. I am always up for coming on your channels. Just let me know, say the word, and I will be there. But we'll leave it right there for this episode, folks. I'm excited about that iPhone. I think maybe one of the next ones that we do, Jeff, should be once I have mine in hand and I've had a chance to play with it and take it on a trip or two or something, I'll come back with my comments on how it all works. And if I'm still, because I still have a little bit of that reality distortion field and, envy, camera envy, for the people that got the 13. So I'm in that mode right now. So maybe we'll chat again after I get it and I'm outside of that mode. So
have you put in your order?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's ordered. It's I'm like 2 weeks out or something like that. So I've got that coming.
The great chip shortage, right?
Yeah, this is the longest I've waited for an iPhone. So I ordered that one and the iPad mini, and I'm still waiting on that as well. So
let's remind all the listeners that if they're buying tech gifts for Christmas, buy them now.
Order now.
Because they're not going to be able to get them if they wait till Black Friday. This is not going to happen.
Should be an interesting Black Friday. I mean, maybe more of a dark gray Friday this year because of the chip shortage. I mean, the cupboards are bare, the shelves are bare, in some places around here. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Maybe you have to handcraft some gifts this year. Maybe that'll be the play.
Right. We'll just send out cards to everybody. Free portrait.
Yeah, coupons. There you go. Gift cards. That's the way forward. Gift cards for everybody. All right, Jeff. You have a good rest of your day. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate you.
Sure, anytime.
This is TWiP. This episode was sponsored by MPB, the world's largest online platform for used photo and video kit. Visit mpb.com.